speaking of science and technology, Houston Chronicle meteorologist and one of our regular guests here, Justin Ballard, joins us today to talk about STEM. Now, you may notice both of us today are wearing purple, and it's not just because we coordinated, but that's a great idea.
That's a good
we
idea,
should do
too,
that.
yeah.
Today is actually Dress for STEM Day, and Justin, you had a chance to actually speak to a familiar face on ABC. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if you watch Good Morning America or ABC World News tonight, and I sincerely hope everyone watching does, you'll know the name Ginger Zee. She's the first ever female chief meteorologist and chief climate correspondent of a national news network. And I got the chance to talk to her about Dress for STEM Day and the need to get more women into STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. According to a recent article from the National Girls Collaborative Project, women earn more than 50% of bachelor's degrees. Despite that, only 28% of women come out of their college career with degrees in STEM. For Ginger, Dress for STEM Day is an important moment to advocate.
I think that for women, when I talked about representation, now Helen Hunt's character wasn't based on a real person. I don't know that there was someone like her, and I don't think there was. So thanks, Hollywood, for getting it wrong, right? But when we say representation matters, when you're able to see somebody who you think you could be, that's helpful. When they are wearing a color representing the advocacy for the thing that you also love, it makes it easier to see.
Yeah, and having a daughter myself, representation is such a big part of getting young girls interested in and pursuing STEM careers.
Exactly right, and that's part of why we talk so much every year about Dress for STEM Day. Ginger told me while this likely won't come as a shock to either of us, she was the only woman in her first two jobs. Take a listen.
Boy, after that, it gets real bleak until I start in my career, but I was the only woman in my first two jobs.
Not surprised.
No.
I mean, and even, going through meteorology, the program at A&M, I mean, it's a lot of engineering, it's a lot of science and math, which you know as well. And, going into those classes, I mean, they were male dominated, even
heavily.
Heavily in those areas. And then, yes, even coming into, my first couple of jobs, I was one of the only women there. And then in my last job, I was a chief meteorologist in Midland. And, I was obviously one of the only women there doing that. And that came with its own level of issues just because we're still dealing with, people being like, hey, you're a woman, you shouldn't have that chief title. It was
especially
really interesting.
Early on in the career, it's especially
Yes.
difficult for people coming straight out of school.
Very difficult. Yeah. And women have historically been underrepresented in STEM careers, and the needle has only slightly moved ahead in the recent years. We're working on it. Did Ginger actually talk about that, or why she thinks that could be?
She absolutely did. And of course, it has everything to do with how long it took just for women to be accepted into the scientific community. Take a listen.
It took a long time for us to even be able to be here, let alone to be able to be here and be a scientist, let alone to be able to be a scientist, a woman who can also speak and be a conduit of science. And I think that each part of that is another hump for society to get over.
And we know that Ginger isn't the first female chief meteorologist, but she is the first to earn this title at the national news level. I mean, when you talk about visibility, that is huge.
It's monumental, right? Yeah, it absolutely is. But she says that without a historically diverse set of voices, the scientific community at large has missed the mark. Here she is.
But it's about having the best meteorologists out there. And that's what I really think we've missed, is that without considering women, or without the support or education for women to be in STEM, to then go into meteorology, that's been a travesty. There's so many talented people, and we see it right now.
And we know that times are changing, and women and more women are getting into STEM careers. I always love seeing the little girls here, and they're like, hi, I'm thinking they are coming in being like, oh, I want to be a reporter. And I got one the other day, and she's like, I want to be a meteorologist. And I was like, yes, come to me. Let's do it.
Let's talk.
But so are there any role models? That's so important for these young girls in TV, film, and books.
Yeah, exactly. We all know Helen Hunt's character, Dr. Joe Harding from Twister.
Classic.
How could you forget? Fortunately, Ginger isn't just a force for women in STEM. In her role at ABC News, she's also authored a young adult series titled Chasing Helicity. Here's what she said about what inspired the character.
You can't just have real people as the role models. I think you have to have characters and people that can connect to different ages, because someone who's 10 is not necessarily, some of them do, but not necessarily seeing me and being like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So giving that option to have more is a big part of why I thought Helicity would be a great character.
and kids and teenagers able to read Chasing Helicity. So I'm sure this series will inspire the next generation of female scientists. So what gives Ginger hope for the future?
Well, we all know there's always some ray of hope, and Ginger says the future of women in broadcast meteorology and more broadly STEM is a sunny one. Take a listen.
In women, I see the numbers keep climbing, and I think we will do that. It's going to be a slow chip away at the societal norm of what people expect, and I think we'll just keep seeing more. And then I hope what we need to have the focus on is the education part. We have to get to the young women and to the young girls and make sure they have the support and the access.
And that right there, I feel like, is a great note to end on this Dress for STEM Day segment on. Justin, thank you so much for being here and really shedding a light on this and trying to, get more girls into this field.
And you were part of that, so thank you for offering your voice. You can read that story on the Houston Chronicles website.
Thank you so much for being here
Thank you for
today.
having me.
And we're going